Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're exploring a remarkable piece of history, a letter from 1848 penned by George Thomas Orlando Bridgman, a clergyman and son of the second Earl of Bradford, sent to his father during his journey to the Holy Land. For a man of the cloth and an antiquarian, this pilgrimage was a deeply spiritual and historical endeavour, and we'll examine the letter, his travels and the journey this letter took. Let us introduce George Thomas Orlando Bridgman. Born in 1823, he was the second son of George Bridgman, 2nd Earl of Bradford, and grew up at the family seat, Weston Park, a grand estate in Staffordshire. Educated at Harrow and Trinity College, Cambridge, he earned his master's in 1845 and was ordained a priest in 1850. In 1848, he was 25 at the time of writing this letter. His later career saw him serve as rector of Wigan, honorary canon of Chester and Liverpool cathedrals, and chaplain to Queen Victoria from 1872. A man of faith and learning, his antiquarian interest led him to publish History of the Princes of South Wales in 1876. In the 19th century, journeys to the Holy Land held profound significance for men like George. Unlike the fashionable Grand Tour, a sort of gap year amongst the aristocracy and only for cultural prestige, as a priest-to-be and scholar of the past, George's visit to places like Jerusalem and Egypt was a pilgrimage to connect with the sacred sites of the Bible, while also an opportunity to explore the ancient history of these storied lands. Such journeys were not uncommon for clergymen and antiquarians of the era, who saw the Holy Land as a living testament to Scripture and a treasure trove of historical relics, distinct from the romanticized Orientalist lens of wealthier travellers, whom no doubt sought to validate their own ideals. Obviously, we know that such a trip would be immensely costly, so how would this have been paid for in an age where the closest thing to online banking would be a finance employee fishing? Well, they used circular notes, which were common in the Victorian period, especially among the wealthy tourists or merchants travelling internationally. These were popularised by banks like Thomas Cook and Sons, which facilitated travel and financial transactions in Europe and beyond. Now let's look at the letter itself, addressed to his father, the second Earl of Bradford. It's posted in 1848, and I draw your attention here to the top right, we can see an Arabic script, and what I believe to be its English transcription here, the various movements of the cover, which are also supported by other markings elsewhere, which we'll get to later. So posted from Asyut, modern day Upper Egypt, and then it's going to carry on and reach the British Post Office in Alexandria, which actually, if we turn and have a look at the back here, we can see quite good Alexandria 20th of January 1848 CDS. From Alexandria, it's then going to be returned to Jerusalem, as we can see here, returned to Jerusalem, and then it is going to carry on to Bet Shemesh in modern Israel, where it probably left Port Ashdod or Tel Aviv. And then something interesting happens to it. It travels via the French post office in Malta, where it receives this quite good French Purifié au Lazaret Malta mark. And what's that mark? Well, it tells us that the letter has been disinfected. And why disinfect a letter? Well, in 1800s, Europe was gripped by fear of disease, particularly cholera, which ravaged the continent in the 1830s and again in 1848 to 49. Letters were thought to carry infection, so they were sent to lazarettos, a type of quarantine station. In Malta, they used fumigation boxes, vinegar, soaked cloths, and a rastal, a metal tool, to pierce letters for fumes to penetrate. Some were even baked in ovens. And if I just maybe pull up the front and just turn it so that you can see that there are cuts in here from the rastal for the fumigation, and also very clearly here on the back. Yeah, and having left the Middle East, it journeyed on towards England, finally being received in London on the 12th of February 1848, as indicated with this red CDS. It then travelled up the country to Shifnal with this Shifnal February 1848 CDS, and then into the hands of the Earl of Bradford. We can also see here that from the manuscript it's been charged 2 shillings and a penny. And now let's read the letter in full. It is useless to talk of places as settled so long beforehand, but our intention is to start from Cairo on this excursion not later than the 1st of March. Circumstances will of course control our movements, but our plan is to pursue the route taken by the children of Israel in the Exodus, across the desert and Mount Sinai, and Aqaba, and the ruins of Petra, hence to Jerusalem. From Jerusalem we should cross the Jordan and visit the ruins of Al-Magatis and other interesting sites, and again return to Jerusalem, after which we should proceed things to HolyLand and Damascus. This will give you an idea of our movements. When the time approaches near, I will give you a fuller description of our route. So, save another letter. I now beg you to the enclosed acknowledgement to Mr. Simpson, which I have neglected to do. I acknowledge the receipt of my circular notes from you in a letter to my sisters. I also wish in one of my precious letters to them that you would retain a circular note of £25 to pay some expenses. I had saved the £25 up to the time of my arrival at Alexandria, but perhaps it is as well as it is, for I may want it before the receipt of my next. In fact, I am at a loss where to send them. There is no bank at Jerusalem, and no other certain point between Constantinople, which the next packet to the care of Charles Hanson, bankers at Constantinople, to whom I should wish to have my letters directed when the time approaches. I calculate upon reaching Jerusalem before the 4th of April, and should hope to find letters directed to me there under the care of Her Britannic Majesty's Consul, as also at Damascus a month later. From the circular notes at Constantinople, please to subtract the £25 as mentioned. I will remember the picture you mention of the Tyrol herself. I think it was at Chateau d'Eau, the palace, where Louis Philippe received our queen. It must have been the portrait of Margaret Malthouse, with the mule's mouth. The painting referred to by George here is a very famous one, although a copy, titled The Ugly Duchess, also known as An Old Woman, painted by Flemish artist Quentin Massey around 1513. Margaret Malthouse was an unflattering nickname for Margaret, Countess of Austria. That translates to Ugly Duchess. It is a satirical portrait that now resides at the National Gallery in London. A copy of The Ugly Duchess is documented as part of a gallery of ancestral portraits at the Château d'Eau, owned by Anna Marie Louise d'Orleans, and it is first recorded there in 1839. The inference that it is Margaret, Countess of Tyrol, is interesting, as art historians still debate to this day who it is supposed to represent. Some scholars, including those in Victorian times, speculated that the painting portrays Margaret, Countess of Tyrol. As we can see, George also believes this. He goes on to say, that brought the Tyrol to the home of Austria. She must have been a dear bargain with her beautiful dowry. I believe she was very fond of Schlop Tyrol and paid them a good deal. Thomas then implies that, despite her reported hideousness, the fact she brought this Tyrol region into union with the Austrian Habsburgs in 1369 made her apparent disadvantages in the face department a price worth paying. He continues, I only discovered lately that there were post stations up the Nile, or I should have written before. I know of at least one more post office we shall pass, where I shall probably post this. I have room for no more now, but I will write to many soon. We drank Ursula's health on the 18th. Give my best love to my sisters, your affectionate son, George Thomas Oscar Bridgman. There we are, a window into a clergyman and antiquarian's journey through one extraordinary letter to his father, his pilgrimage and historical pursuit, a true relic of the 19th century. What are your thoughts? Would you have journeyed with George on such a sacred and scholarly quest? Leave a comment, give us a like, and subscribe for more postal history journeys. Until the next time, farewell.